everybody. Hello from quarantine. I am currently escaping the house. Just kidding, I have to run to the grocery store. It's crazy to me because it feels like a new world we're in almost. Trying to adapt. I'm trying to fix the lighting on this. Trying to adapt to what we can. That kind of worked. Oh, there we go. Trying to adapt to this new world and new life is a little difficult. When we were given this assignment, the one thing that I wanted to do was kind of just show everybody what life for me was like. And I also wanted to talk about my experience during this quarantine. At first it was kind of surreal to me. It didn't really hit me that, we are in quarantine. I've never really known the full meaning of that word until just lately. But to me it's kind of been a learning process, and I'm sure that's the same thing everybody else can say, is that this whole quarantine and this whole pandemic has been a learning process. I think the most difficult part for me though has been learning how to adapt what I thought was my daily routine, and especially with school. I think that's probably been the most difficult part. I'm so used to being set in a routine and set inside a classroom for learning. And yeah, I had 1 or 2 classes online each semester, but to be switched to fully online was difficult for me. I learned solely out of being in person and being able to ask those questions that I need. And so to have that taken away from me was definitely a struggle. But like many others and like many other things in life, I've had to adapt to this change. And for a long time, for about a month or so, from March until I guess middle of April, I've kind of wished to myself, like, I hope we can get back to normal, and I hope we can get back to how things were. But recently, actually this past Sunday, I listened to a sermon by Stephen Furtick, the pastor at Elevation, and I actually attend Elevation Greenville, and he talked about learning to let go of what normal was. And for me, that kind of opened my eyes, because he talked about how we don't want to get back to the normal that we were so used to. We don't want to get back to that normal, because that normal included, self-doubt, anxiety, and he talks about how this world has become so used to the way they were living that they'd rather get back to that normal than face the new normal. And I think a very big part of that comes in the way we live our lives. If anything this pandemic has taught me, it has been that God is bigger than anything that we're sent, I guess is what I'm trying to say. God has kind of shown all of us that He is ultimately in control of everything. He has kind of opened my eyes to what He is capable of. And what I mean by that is He is capable of sending a pandemic our way, but also He is capable of joining neighbors together. One thing I've seen throughout this pandemic is my community coming together to support those in the medical field and those who have been affected by this pandemic. I think it's crazy to me that it takes something as serious as the coronavirus to bring us together. But I also think that's God's way of saying that in the end we are sons and daughters of Him, and there should never be a distinction between us. I don't know if any of this is making sense, but I've definitely had a lot of time to reflect on this and reflect on how we're going to move forward from this. I definitely agree with most people that we are never going to get back to normal, but I also hope we never do. Before this pandemic, like I was just talking about, before this pandemic, people would go about their lives thinking that everything's always going to be okay and never having a fear of what was going to happen or fear of not having God in their lives. And so I think this pandemic has brought a lot of people's eyes back in focus to what really is important. I definitely am grateful I'm grateful that, not that this has happened, but grateful for what the outcome has been. And I say that by meaning I've never been closer to my family before. I've never been more trusting in God and His plan for my life. And I've learned to just kind of accept each day as a blessing and accept each day as a gift, which before I took for granted. And I'm realizing now that a lot of people don't get that. A lot of people don't get that next day, or a lot of people don't get the blessings that I get each day. For those that haven't been affected by the coronavirus, I think it's been a challenge of their faith, but also it's been in a way that God has kind of refocused other people's focus on Him. It's hard to put into words what this has been like for me, but one thing I have tried to do throughout this whole process is kind of record what every day has been like. And was that there have been days that I have woken up and I have gotten so much schoolwork done, but then there are those days where I wake up and I just kind of don't have that motivation, and I will lay in bed all day or watch Netflix. And so definitely one thing I've learned throughout this pandemic is to always have a set schedule. That's something I kind of lacked in the beginning, but I kind of refocused my energy into setting that schedule, and that I found that helped me a lot, and it allowed for me to focus on the things that I needed to, and focus on what was important. And I think one of the major things that has helped me do that is the encouragement of my family. My mom's a teacher, my dad he works in finance, and so this pandemic has brought them home for, I guess, 2 months now. And they have been so encouraging of me and so encouraging of this time. I think it's been a struggle for all of us, and we're all learning day by day, but it's been amazing because it's also been a time, oh gosh, here comes the lighting. It's also been a time of self-reflection, and like I said, I've never been closer to my family, and I've never been closer to my walk with the Lord. And so I think it's very important to remember during this time that you're never alone, and you're always going to have a support system behind you. I'm still at a loss for words at points when I'm trying to figure out what exactly this is. But I know that in the end, it's going to bring all of us out stronger, and we're all going to be able to say we survived a pandemic, but we're also going to be able to say that we came out stronger than ever. We're joining together as a community, and I think that's that's the most important thing during this time, is to come together and encourage each other. Be there for those who are in the healthcare field. If you have a loved one, or if someone you know is involved in the healthcare field, encourage them, thank them. They are the ones who are risking their lives every day to help us figure this all out. Today I got to witness a flyover